Talking with Ron Hebert, the veteran lacrosse coach who's now at Lake Orion. And Ron, maybe you could start from the beginning of a storied career and maybe kind of give us a capsulation version of what happened the first 10 or 12 years.
About my playing career or my coaching career?
Wherever it started.
Back before the turn of the century, which is a great turn of the phrase, I think, everybody that played lacrosse had a wild story, and every story is interesting. My story is kind of amazing in itself, in that I was a big hockey guy, and the Red Wings to me are the coolest thing. And going to Olympia back in the '60s and it was just the greatest experience you could have. And one day there, late season Red Wing game, I got a free pass. They were passing out passes to come in the summer to watch what they were calling the Detroit Olympics. And it was a box lacrosse team, and a buddy and I did everything together. He said, we gotta check this out. So his dad took us down, and it was 2-for-1 ticket or whatever it was. And it was Detroit Olympics playing, I don't know who, but they were warming up down in Olympia, and I just fell in love with it. And I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest game. And then they started playing, and my buddy tells me that the way we really got connected was there was the opening face-off, and the two guys jerked jacking the ball, then turned and started beating each other over the head with their sticks. And I don't remember that, but I'm assuming that I just remember the beauty of the cradle, and it's a mesmerization that's captured me then. And you had a stick here, which I don't. I got one in the car. I always carry a stick in the car, by the way.
Why?
That's a good question. You never know when a lacrosse game is going to break out.
Even in '66, that's true.
I know Kimball and I were somewhere, and a kid pulled up, and we were having a camp or a game or something, and some kid showed up, and I said, well, we need another guy. Come on out and play. And he says, I don't have my stick with me. And I said, what do you got to always carry your equipment with you when you're a lacrosse player. And Kimball started laughing. He goes, you have a stick in your car? And to this day, because of that, I always carry a stick in my car. But I get it up, and I have a hard time putting it down. I just love the motion of cradling. And what I watched, the only thing I gained from that game, the Detroit Olympics, was they used to spin their stick and shoot behind their back. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So that was in the summer of '68 or '67, and all the a lot of the players that were NHL players, Favell, Perrant. I can't think of. I think Paul Henderson was a player, and a lot of them were, as it turns out, which I didn't know then. But
for your old timers, Paul Henderson, number 19 of the Detroit Red Wings, and Bertie Perrant, the goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, and they used to play all summer in Canada to keep in shape. I discover now, but so anyway, I came home. My dad was French Canadian. Came over in the Depression, and I asked him about lacrosse, and he said, "Oh yeah, we used to play that when we were kids." And I was like, "Really?" Because he grew up near Wallaceburg, and I'm like, "Well, can you get me, get me sticks? I have to have it." So somehow I waited for 6 months till Christmas, and under the tree were two, original used wooden box lacrosse sticks and a ball. A guy that worked for him grew up near Wallaceburg, near the Indian Reservation there, and I got these, and I just would start running around the backyard as soon as the snow went, and twirling my stick and shooting behind my back, and I had a hockey goal, of course, and then basically what happened was when I graduated from high school, don't even ask me how, I just said, I'm going to play lacrosse. I announced. I told my dad, I'm going to play lacrosse. And he goes, I don't know where you're going to play. So I looked at the paper every day in the spring, and sure enough, there was an ad for the Detroit Windsor Junior, whatever, I don't even know what her name was. And they had it down at Olympia, and I said, oh man, to try out down at Olympia would be just to be on the floor at Olympia. I never played. And back then they didn't let kids play, so you never. Olympia was still like a temple to me. And so I went down there, and they were partially tearing apart Olympia back in 1970, and all these Canadians were on the floor, and they gave me this equipment, and I had no idea what it was. And I went out there with my stick, and I couldn't catch. It's just a common story. Kid goes out, can't catch, can't throw, but I could run around twirling my stick. And so they're running these drills, and they pass. I juggle this pass as I'm cutting across the goal, but I'm past the goal, so I just spin my stick and I shoot behind my back, and it goes in on the goalie, and the whole practice stops. And they said, "What are you doing this weekend?" And I was like, "I don't know, nothing." They said, "You're coming up with us to Elora." And we're playing up in Elora, and I go, "Where the hell is Elora?" And they said, "Man, you could play this." And I said, "Really, guys, I don't know what I'm doing." And they go, "BS, you know what you're doing." They packed me in a couple cars, and we zoomed off to Elora, which I had never been back to. And there's actually a gorge in Elora that's but anyway, we played in this old barn. They put me on man down, and I shoveled the ball down the floor because I couldn't pick it up. I got rammed it head first into the boards. They blew the whistle. We got possession of the ball. I came, staggering off, and everybody's, giving me hugs. "Oh, you're fantastic, great job." Like, oh my God. So I played junior B lacrosse all summer of 1970 for this team that Windsor wouldn't allow to play at Windsor Arena. So we played out of Amherstburg, and the stories out of that summer. And I played with all the Lance Cruise guys that were on the original Lance Cruise team, and the stories are unbelievable. We lost to Mhslca 39-3, and so whenever kids complain, you don't even know what a pasting is till you've lost 39-3, and our goalie went into shock, and just unbelievable, and I got hit a week after I took my wisdom teeth out, and I had the little swelling. I'm playing man down up in Mississauga. I think no, it was Hamilton beat us 39. Okay. Hamilton beat us 39-3. It was at Mississauga. I'm playing man down, and this guy just rips a shot. Back then, we didn't have cages. We just had a 3-piece hockey helmet with a little plastic mouthpiece. And this guy and I'm standing like this, and he rips a shot from where that light is, and it hit me right here, just as hard as it knocked me out. As I get hit in the face with a hammer, and they dragged me out the floor. In the locker room at the end of the period, they gave me a couple aspirin. I went out and played the rest of the game, and then my face started swelling up, and the pictures are. So, like I said, that first season, I could tell stories for the next 2 hours about the crazy guys that we had,
the joke of the old industrial leagues used to be that Jerry Burns' brother played in some of those in the middle 70s, and the joke was that next to every goalie was a keg of beer in the locker room because they couldn't get through a game without 2 cigarettes and a keg of beer.
Well, that's what
I'm not so sure that wasn't true.
That's what I always joke to call it. Canadian halftime is a cigarette and a beer, and but that was when the hilarious that even. Everything is about is odd. I go up to Michigan State, and I live on the same floor as Val Washington did the year before. So I'm walking. I brought my stick up, of course, because I had heard there was lacrosse up there, and everybody gets me in touch with Val to give him a call, and Val calls me up to recruit me out for the team, and I said, "Well, I really played field lacrosse, and so." But he says, "We really need you to come on." He was a very persuasive guy. So I go out to tryouts, and I knew the stick was different, so I didn't bring a stick. So they gave me one of these flat. I go, "I can't play with this thing. What the hell?" Because the pocket in the box lacrosse, was a bag,
right.
And after I was halfway through the first practice, and somebody pulls me aside and says, "We think you'd make a good goalie."
So you've gone from juniors now, you're at Michigan State as a student.
Yeah, and they pulled me out the practice field, and Freddie Hartman was the guy at Michigan State that pulled me off, and turns out he was the goalie the year before, and he hated playing goal. So he was talking to Ted Svoboda, who was the one-year coach. That's another story about who started the program at Michigan State, which you know more than I do about probably. Turk. Was it Turk? Yeah. And Boda goes, well, Freddie, if you're not going to play lacrosse, play goal, who is? And I just happened to be running by in the line drill, and Fred turned and said, that guy. So they pulled me into goal, and I had asthma. I had a problem with asthma, so I wasn't really, I thought, maybe this would be a good idea. I don't have to run a lot. And so they put me in goal, and I was terrified. I played 3 years, and I just was terrified. But in the summer, I go back to Trey. We had a box lacrosse league there, which was another story. We played for the Wayne County Sheriffs, and those were epic battles there. But anyway,
just a side question: Michigan State was one of the lone Midwestern teams in the '70s, NCAA teams.
Yes and no. The teams that we played, it turns out, were basically the I don't even know the name of the league, the Ohio League. So it was in Denison, Kenyon, Ohio Wesleyan, Ohio State wasn't in that league, but it was something. Oberlin, Wittenberg. I'm trying to think of there's Marietta.
Right.
And those are the teams basically we played. The Notre Dame, which I had thought was a varsity team, I didn't discover until years later it was only a club.
Right.
They were very well organized.
Kevin Corrigan turned them into a varsity team from a club team.
Yeah.
When his dad was the athletic director.
Yeah, Leary was the, was it Kevin Leary was the coach there
Yep.
for 20th year. And I thought it was a varsity team. I never realized it was a club because they were good.
Well, the reason I'm asking the question,
So,
there's always been in those days, and up through probably till 10 years ago, Division III teams, top Division III teams, could always play with Division I teams.
Yes.
And Division II lacrosse in college was relatively non-existent.
well, it was completely non-existent.
So, is that one of the reasons that Division III maybe was so strong, because they were playing Division I teams in those days?
Well, back then you were just playing lacrosse.
Okay.
There was no scholarships anywhere.
Right.
So they were just
Glorified club
kids
teams.
Yeah. And Michigan State was a glorified club team. I mean, that was a hilarious story. Bert Smith, when our budget was like $1,000. You know, the coach got $100. I mean,
When did Rich get there? When did Rich Kimball?
oh, that's way later.
Okay.
Way later. That's the early '80s.
Okay.
I believe.
82, I think, is when he
Kimball's
was there.
better than me, but it was early.
You were out of college by 82.
Yeah, I mean, so, and then of course Michigan, I didn't mention Michigan. Michigan was an incredible rivalry. But anyway, so I just played, I started out in goal, and it was go back and play box lacrosse. So actually for coaching, that was great, because then my senior year, I finally told Fred Hartman was the head coach then. This is, the guys that graduated the year before would be the coach. And he said, I said, Fred, this is stupid. I'm not, because I would play box lacrosse, so I had pretty good stick skills. I said, stupid for me to be in goal. I should be at attack, playing attack, because I'm probably the best offensive player in the team. And he said, you're right. So I switched from, you could do this back then, I switched from goal to attack. And so, for coaching wise, it was great, because I had devised my own defensive systems and clears when I was the goalie. And so now I was attacked, so I designed the offense.
Was that because you were a good, well, let me ask you a better question. Was that because you didn't have great coaching, or was that because you just had a mind ahead of everybody else?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Like I said, our guys were just playing. It was. You still see it in Michigan. You still see a program where the only input they have is from the guy that graduated the year before, who only had the input from the guy before. But I was I didn't realize. I was a big sports guy. I always watched very analytically. I didn't realize the other thing that you're getting to is I came from a family of teachers. My mother was a teacher. Her sisters were all teachers. All my cousins were teachers. My sisters ended up teaching. I said the one thing I'm going to not do is teach. I wanted to go into journalism like you.
Right.
And because I liked writing, and I was analytical. And
but there's a certain occupational hazard there that you're stuck with.
But what I ended up doing was I had a real analytical mind about, like I developed my own stick handling style, and I tried to teach the guys on our team who with more or less lack of success, with better stick handling style. Because I would sit and watch, I'll never forget his name, Steve Nazareth, played for Denison, and he was a perennial all Midwest. We had a Midwest League, which was a group of teams. I don't know if they're all varsity or not, but we had a Midwest League. He was perennially first team all Midwest, and he was from Baltimore. And I would just watch. I would go down to Denison when they would beat us 20-3, and I would watch him warm up out against the wall, and I would try to imitate his style. And and I like the rest of the guys were all, like, why don't you guys watch how the other teams do? Because that's what I'm doing. But I found that college kids, their ability to learn the game the stick handling was hard. It was harder for them. So I immediately came up with a theory: it'd be easier if we were working with younger kids.
Right.
And because I had coached some kids in the summer, which that was the other thing that happened. Talked to my buddy and I said, why don't we start our own box lacrosse team and play over Windsor in the summer while we were still playing for the Wayne County Sheriff's. Well, and he thought, sure. And of course, he thought I was an idiot. But we got together kids from he had a younger brother, got kids from his neighborhood. And then we had Mad Dog Cashin, his brother. Mad Dog Cashin was a defenseman on the Michigan State team. His younger brother was in Roseville or something. And then I had a younger cousin who lived in Farmington, and we cobbled all these guys together, and I went to we got the Wayne County Sheriff's to fund us, and then we went over to the Windsor Box Lacrosse League, and they said, we'd like to play in your league. And they were like, oh my God, and somehow we talked them into it. I don't know how. And then we said, well, we'd like to have a couple games over in the States. And they said, well, we're not a travel. This is a box. We don't want to travel. I said, well, Fraser, you just crossed the border. Can we just have 2 games? And they said, okay. So we took these 14-year-olds to play Bantam box lacrosse, and we just had a blast. Our team was terrible, but that was my introduction to the coaching part of running our own team, and I was hooked.
So you were thinking about coaching to some extent long before you ever quit playing.
Well, yeah, as a junior, that was a junior summer after before my senior year.
Do you think your philosophy now would be different if you'd have started in field versus starting in box?
That's a hard one to answer. I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
There wasn't much strategy in box. It was just the stick handling.
Right.
And so I had, now Canadians are known for their incredible skill, but back then I was looked at as a weirdo.
Right.
For the style that I had, and people would, there was guys, coaches that would, like, we would run summer camps in the 80s, and they would not let their kids go where I was coaching because they thought I would pollute them with more the Canadian style. They wanted
the rebel that we know you to be is start early on. That's what you're
well,
talking
yeah,
about.
I was like, but the thing was, I go, it works. Like I taught what the St. Hugo kids and the Brother Rice kids I taught, and they had better skills than everybody else.
Right.
And they would all make fun of me. I go, guys, I'm winning. Who's the wise man and who's the foolish man?
Right.
I'm beating your ass every year with my guys, and I'm making, better players.
If you're John Grant Jr. and you've got one hand and it's better than anybody in the world, you can be one-handed.
Well, I wasn't just one-handed, but I had a different. Everybody else had this real upright, you got to do this type of style. And I go, that's really limiting.
The 2006 World Championships in London, Ontario, where the Canadians beat the Americans in the last game on Sunday. I happened to be standing on the sidelines, and I always heard that you had to have 2 hands. I watched he and, at the time, Gary Gait destroy the Americans, who had good players, Nicky Polanco, destroy the Americans with one hand, from that perspective. So you've had Michigan State, you've worked towards coaching. What was the next step after Michigan State?
Well, I took the tendency was to have me be the next coach, because I was, like I said, by the last game against Denison, I designed I designed the defense, I designed the offense, and we had watched. This was really the thing that did it. Our average, we lost to Denison, who was perennially a Division III national power under was it Tommy Thompson. Our average losing score in my first 3 years was about 17-1. My junior year, I designed a zone defense, which Steve Nazarick after the game said, that really gave us a lot of problem. I go, good. And we lost only 11-1.
What kind of zone?
I can't remember. I can't remember. It was, it was
a while ago.
Yeah, it was some kind of basic zone. I mean, I didn't. I had nothing. I just made it up. But that summer we went to. No, it's that spring. Fred Hartman and another player. We drove out to Franklin Field to watch one of the first national NCAA championship games between Hopkins and the fabulous Maryland teams with Frank Urso and all those guys. And Maryland had beat Hopkins 20-5, I think, during the season. And here they were, I think it's Franklin Field in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And Hopkins just got slaughtered by the massive hordes, the Genghis hordes that Maryland had. And Buddy Beardmore was the coach. Anyway, Frank, oh my God, Jack Thomas, to me, is still the greatest lacrosse player of all time. He takes to get the opening face-off. He goes into the corner and stands there. And everybody's in the field like, what? Nobody ever seen this before. They go to a stall, and there was no box back then. There was nothing. And Maryland didn't know what to do. And Jack Thomas stood there with the ball on a stick. And after a couple of minutes, they send two guys out. Jack Thomas sprints, throws it here, goes bang, bang around the box, comes back to Jack, he's standing in the corner. And the people that are watching the game, there were all these coaches, and they're just furious. They think this is just the worst thing that's ever happened to lacrosse. And I was like, holy shit. Well, anyway, they took Maryland to overtime, 10-9, and lost. But the strategy of holding the ball completely threw Maryland off. And it gave me a kernel of idea, like what to do. So we played Denison the next year, and they came up. It was late in the season, and I said, "Guys, let's run a stall." And Fred Hartman came up with this complicated thing, numbers and going on. And I said, "Guys, don't worry about it. Just spread out. I'll run the stall because I've seen it before." So I was Jack Thomas. We won the opening face-off. I go out and stand in the corner. And
they don't know what to do.
Denison's like, oh, they're laughing. They're stalling. Oh my God, how these idiots? And they thought we were terrible. And I said, okay, we'll see. And they sent two guys out to get me. I throw the ball, bang, bang, bang. And Herb Orvis took a shot on goal and turned the ball over. And I go up to Herb, what the? We're not. He's like, you're right. We get the ball down and go stand in the corner. And then I get loose. Somebody scores. For us. We're almost halftime. It's like 2-1. What do the Denison guys do? They're freaking out. Right. They're freaking out. And to me, that was I was like, but the other thing was, since we had a hard time clearing against them because they had ropes, I took the wing on the face-off, and if we lost the face-off, which we lost a lot of, I would play defense. And if we had to clear the ball, I would tell the guys, listen, I'll come down and help you clear the ball. So I started with every clear behind the net. And I would start the ball, I'd draw two guys, and then I would bang the ball up, and then I would just talk the ball up the field. I would go there, and then I would jog down to the corner, and they would get the ball back to me.
Start again.
So I was controlling the whole game.
Right.
And to make a lot, I could spend the hour, but we lost to them 6-4. But the best thing was they were just pissing in their pants, and we had brought. I mean, they were a Final Four team in Division III, and we had done that to them, and we were like, wow. I mean, I was like, man, coaching, if a strategy can make a huge impact, no matter how the talent differential, and that's to me what I'm still living off that same, trying to do that.
But that was the hook day.
That was it. Yeah, I mean that was incredible. See the effect that my strategies by, what I could do and
to make a difference.
And
Go from post college to Northwood.
that's a long time. That's 6 teams. I'm allowed to.
Well, let me ask you a better question. What happened after college?
Well, I took the summer kids that played box, and we tried to make a field team out of them, which was a disaster. It was
Why?
South Lake High School
St. Clair Shores.
in St. Clair Shores. The kids just, we tried to play in the Midwest League. There was a lot of drugs and alcohol in them, and there was a lot of problems, and I had to actually curtail and I was trying to get kids out, and they would we were begging kids to come out, and they didn't get it.
Okay.
And we didn't have enough kids, and it was just I think I actually did it for 2 years. We had a club team where one year we had a club team with a bunch of guys, and then we tried to settle it just on South Lake, and the next year that didn't work.
So this would be late 70s?
76, 77, yeah. And then I went into that kind of folded, so I went into reffing, so I refereed. There was only 6 referees back then, and so I ended up refereeing, the state championship game in 81 or 82, because I was Andy Critchfield and I were and then when I was 81, I got hired, or 80, I got hired at, say, Hugo's as a teacher, because I said I was going to go back, got a teacher degree, so that I could coach lacrosse.
Oh, so you went back to be a teacher so you could coach lacrosse?
I went back to Wayne State, went through their teacher certification program, and
because you kind of started out the interview saying that didn't want to do the teaching thing.
Yeah, well, now I realized I wanted to coach, and I had to have the problem with South Lake is I wasn't a teacher. I didn't have any control over I didn't have enough knowledge of what kids. I figured I was going to have to go to a place and build the whole thing, not really knowing how it was that you were supposed to build the whole thing. So
right.
And fortunately, St. Hugo's, I taught 1 year at St. Lawrence, which was kind of a mess. And then the second year I got hired at St. Hugo's, which turned out to be perfect, Bluefield Hills. And I taught 5th and 6th grade, and I started, again, this is hilarious stories. I didn't have anything to show the kids. I coached basketball, and I didn't know anything about basketball, but I wanted to coach basketball so I get the kids. And then I wanted to show the kids lacrosse, but I didn't have any film of it. So this is hilarious story again. I wrote to Hank Ciccarone, who was the coach at Hopkins, and I said, is there any chance you can send me some film? I'm trying to develop lacrosse in Detroit. In a week, big canisters of old 8mm film shows up. I hope this helps. Best, Chick.
Wow.
To this day, Hank Ciccarone to me is like this is the most overlooked. Bob Scott was the coach, but for Chick to do that, he's passed on way too early. I was heartbroken. Never met the guy. But he sent
pretty cool gesture, though. Say the
He
least.
sent Hopkins Navy film.
Right.
And I kept these things for like a year, and you don't need to get back. And every rainy lunch hour, I would have Chris Cote. His brother, he went on to play at Navy, and his cousin, was a great player. Brother Ryson went to Hopkins, and he would come over and and I'd get all the boys in the grade, to come down and we'd watch lacrosse film. And after I did that for a couple months, the guy said, Mr. Hebert, can we have a lacrosse team here? I go, wow, I never thought about that. What a great idea. And then kids, and like, what are we going to do for sticks? I go, I don't know. But then somehow sticks started popping up. So my whole basketball team, and at the end of March, I said, well, we'll have a lacrosse practice today in the gym. And they said, what are we going to use for gloves? I just grab old hockey gloves. And they go, what are we going to do for helmets? I go, bring old hockey helmets. We need shoulder pads? All right, if you have shoulder pads, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. So we start playing after school in the gym. And the kids thought the hockey helmets were too hot, so they took them off. And somehow, before I could stop them, and of course, the first thing that happens, a kid gets a nick in the eye, and
back to the helmets.
Well, no, one of the dads comes in and says, "Kids need helmets, don't they?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, where can we get helmets?" I go, and of course, I knew Darky, at Lax, whatever the heck it was back then. And back then, helmets were like $50 a piece. So he says, well, how many do you need? I go, well, I need 20 for a team. He writes me a check for, God, then it was only like 1,000 or what? It was $500 or something for
right.
20 helmets. And the next week, 20 helmets show up. So I got these kids all with helmets. And
I think that's an important point. But I think that's an important point because, everything today, it's almost in their laps. And
yes.
In those days, you're it's like early days of television. You're inventing as you go along.
Yeah, and they go, look, we get equipment. I give them Darky's number, at Lax World, or I think Lax World. So
from Hugo's to where?
So anyway, the funny thing is that out of those guys, that's incredible. I mean, that's, Paul Cosgrove, who should have won a national championship at Hobart. Leary played at Cornell, was captain there. A bunch of kids that went to Michigan State. That was the beginning of the core of the Brother Rice team. And they said, what are we going to do when we graduate from here? Because we had a little team there. We only played DCD and Cranbrook, and that was basically it. And then Our Lady of Sorrows. And I said, don't worry, I'll guarantee that I'll have a high school team for you if Brother Rice doesn't start again. Because they all went to Brother Rice. And meanwhile, of course, Mike Lucci, the football player for the Lions, his son, had played at DCD, and he was transferred to Brother Rice. And so they wanted to start a lacrosse team there. But I didn't know that. But Popson, who was an AD at Rice, his daughter played volleyball for me. I taught the kids. He said he would start coming over every day. What do we got to do to start lacrosse? And of course, I was, used to doing it cheap, and that I would tell him what he needed and who they could play, and he would come over every day for 3 months after school, picking his kids up and talking to me about lacrosse. Well, then they announced finally, and this was when our kids had graduated from 8th grade, they were going to have lacrosse at Brother Rice. And then, to my surprise, they hired Rob Ambrose as the head coach. And I just felt kind of betrayed because I had been the guy
doing all the work.
I thought, well, Mike was like, well, who says you've been doing all the work? And
so here's two questions.
So
Brother Rice starts, but their first 5 years of practice was at St. Mary's.
No, not completely.
But some of it.
Some of it.
Okay. Was there no field at Brother Rice?
Those stories are legend. They didn't want us to tear up the football practice field.
Coach Fracassa didn't.
So they had us practice at St. Regis. We practiced in the parking lots.
Okay.
We practiced we practiced where they threw the discus. And
any place you were in trouble.
Well, everywhere was trouble. Everywhere was trouble. Then we moved. Then they moved us up the street to where the DCD middle school is now. and we practiced an area about the size of a baseball infield diamond with monkey bars and teeter-totters and stuff all around us.
So obviously it wasn't a priority.
And there was no goals there, so we practiced with chairs, if we could find them. I mean, everybody says about this, I mean, and that was like 3 or 4 years before. And we used to play our home games at Cranbrook.
So when you didn't get the Rice job, what was next?
Well, I coached the JV. They said, we're going to make you and Ambrose co-coaches. I go,
Okay.
How's that going to work? Well, I ended up coaching the JV. And I was, the kids, you know, we went undefeated. We never lost a game in 2 years. And then Rob moved on in a very strange manner. And
Moved on to where?
he moved on.
Okay.
He left town.
He left Brother Rice.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that.
No, he in the middle of the year, I mean, not in the middle of the season, but like the middle of the school year, he just, I'm leaving, I got another opportunity someplace else.
Which is how you end up taking over.
It's your deal.
Right.
So they made me the head coach in the 3rd year of the program. And, you know, basically I coached, you know, we won every year. We played in the Midwest and the Michigan League, and we alternated years. We won the Midwest League the first year, but lost Michigan because the Michigan tournament was the week after the Midwest.
Right.
It's really, I mean, and the Midwest was unbelievably competitive. It was the most intense lacrosse I've ever seen.
And to point out, the Midwest was Michigan and Ohio.
Yeah, it was
Upper Arlington.
Swickley, Arlington,
And
Western
Swickley being in
Reserve,
Pennsylvania, so
Worthington.
Western Pennsylvania as well.
Yeah, and the rivalries were like, I mean, it was like the Ohio-Michigan State game. The Ohio State-Michigan game
Right.
every weekend.
Right.
I mean, and you play it back-to-back, and it was just killer. And the rivalry was just so intense, it was incredible. And
Mention that because Teddy Wolford at Arlington just stepped down from there. I know that's a bunch of stories. But.
Yeah, the Wolford brothers or something. But anyway, so that was, you know, so I did that. We, like I said, we would alternate. And then last year, '89, Brother Rice, we won both leagues. We won both the Midwest Championship and the Michigan State Championship, and both in overtime, both in double overtime. And at that point, the Cranbrook thing changed everything.
You have a great run. Talk briefly about your run at Brother Rice before you move on to Cranbrook.
We just won and won and won. And
89, you won everything.
89, we won
Midwest.
both the Midwest Championship in double overtime, and then the Michigan State Championship would be DCD in double overtime. And the funny thing was that was my rebuilding year, because in '88 was when I had all my talent, and we won the state championship. I think, yeah, we beat Brother Charlie Brennan, beat Catholic Central, and that was my talented team, the kids that I had grown from St. Hugo's all the way up, and so '89 was kind of the after child, and for them to be the team that went undefeated, 22-0 or something like that, was really remarkable. And
So 89, next year is Cranbrook. What, maybe brief part of that story?
Tom Gracer was a legend, who's still a legend. He was my mentor, probably. He coached at Cranbrook, built the Cranbrook team into a power. He decides he's going back to Denver. Tough choice. Or, live out in the mountains. And so his program had went from winning the state championship in '88 to a team that only won one game in '89. And they wanted somebody to rebuild their program again. He said, would you be interested in doing it? At the time, I was starting to have trouble because my kids are being recruited, and it was hard to talk to college coaches when I was in a classroom over at St. Hugo's. I would get a voice over the PA system. It's the Naval Academy on the phone, Mr. Hebert. It's Cornell on the phone. It's Ricky Moran calling me at my classroom, Bill Tierney comes over to visit my classroom, and while I'm teaching 8th grade kids who are, their hair's on fire, And I said, I don't, this is getting hard. And the nuns were getting irritated with me for the fact that, a lot of my time was being spent elsewhere. So I thought maybe I better get out of this while I still can. And so I said, well, I'd be interested in taking the Cranbrook job. Tommy would come back, come to Grace, would come back every summer run a camp at Cranbrook, even when he wasn't there. And so he came back and he said, well, they need a coach here. Would you be interested in moving? And I said, God. I almost had a nervous breakdown, the thought of leaving this thing at Brother Rice that I thought I had built. And I mean, it was as close as I ever come to nervous breakdown. And they offered me the job and kind of a fluff position where I wouldn't be in the classroom. It was in the PR department. And I thought about it, and I went. I talked to Kevin Morrow. I said, "What do you think?" He says, "Well, you got to think of your future. You can't just think of coaching Brother Rice the rest of your life." And so I went over to talk to the principal of the school, brother or something or other. And I said, "Listen, I got to get out of St. Hugo's." I said, "I'll come over here. I'll do anything with Brother Rice. I'll mow the lawn. I'll sweep the floor. I'll do whatever you want." I said, "If not, I got to get out of the situation where I'm teaching at one school and working at the other." I said, if you can't offer me any even hope in the future that I might get hired, I'll have to look elsewhere, and for coaching." And he said, I'll never forget this. He just looked at me and goes, "I wish you good luck in your search." And then he stood up and he said, "They're putting sod in our front here. I've always been fascinated by instant lawn. Haven't you?" And I was like, he doesn't give after what I had done.
Right.
And winning everything, and I thought I was of some value to somebody. I'll never forget after the '89 game, Steve Morrison, who later played for the Lions and the Colts as a football player in Michigan. He was captain of Michigan, captain for the Indianapolis Colts, and he played for me when we won both championships. And I'll never forget that game. Al Fracassa, who Michigan sports just put on as one of the 5 greatest football coaching legends of all time. He comes down, he can't, and of course I revered Al like everybody else. He comes down and he says, "I don't know how you get such a passion out of these kids. I wish I knew how to coach like you do." He says, "What you did with Steve Morris I wish I could get that out of him." And I was just like, here I'm getting adulation from the greatest football coach in the state. That felt like I was somebody. But Brother, whatever his name was more interested in his instant lawn. And so
Did you learn anything from that, though? Did you learn anything from that?
You think? It's like
Deflate the ego.
It's like Mike Kennedy's dad always told me, and Dick Kennedy was a legend. He said, "I was looking for a job when I got here." And I never forget that. Dick's passed away, God bless him, but that's what my fly. I was looking for a job when I got here, and so I went right from there, and I told Tommy, I said, "I'm in. Tell me what I got to do at Cranbrook. Brother Rice doesn't care about me at all."
So talk briefly about Cranbrook. You were there for
2 years.
Okay.
And that's another long story, but they hired me in, and then within 6 months, everybody that hired me in was fired or had left town. And a new group came in and said, "Why are we paying this guy for doing really nothing except coaching?" And so they called me in December, and they had found that they had lost all this. They were $2 million deficit, and they said, "We got to make cuts." And they said, "You're the first one to go." I go, "Okay." And then we won the state. We beat Brother Rice in the state championship in my lame duck year, and kids were crying.
Who was coaching Rice at the time? Ambrose?
No, my JV guy moved up. I'll think of it while I'm Rometti, John Rometti.
Okay.
And we just, the thing was that in 2 years I just taken kids that were really soft at Cranbrook, and I made them tough as nails, and they would run through a wall for me. And we were by going back to Jack Thomas and the Hopkins team. We came within 1 goal of winning the Midwest tournament with a team that had such limit. We had 3 good players, but these kids, they're my greatest team. They 91 Cranbrook team. I still think that was my greatest team. We just had a Cranbrook reunion there, and it's probably my favorite team because that team was so limited. But they would, if I told them, you guys all have to run through that wall, they would do it.
Makes coaching easier with those kind of kids.
They were fabulous, and they still stay together, and they still text me, and and Dave Henning from that team went out and became a coaching legend in Arizona, and he was a flute player. He was the lead. So anyway, so that's
out at Cranbrook.
But during that year, I had heard somebody at Northwood had been asking around about me. And I can't remember who it was. I got the guy's name, and I called him up. I said, listen, right after this meeting in December, they said I was out the door. I said, I'll be looking for a job. He says, great, let me come down and talk to you. Well, it's, and I can't remember his name now. It's an Italian name. And he turns out he was a 4-time All-American.
Lacrosse player.
Yep, okay. At Washington College, I think.
Okay, so the point is, Northwood and lacrosse is not a synonymous name, but they get somebody from the outside who has the background. Is that fair?
This guy's a recruiting guy.
Okay.
He's the head of the admissions department. Or no, he's assistant in admissions.
There has to be a seat someplace, and he was the seat.
Yeah, and he comes out and he talked to me, and he was AD. He coached college. He was a 3 or 4-time All-American. He coached at Washington College. He was the AD at Washington College. I go, what the hell are you doing at Northwood?
Why was he there?
I said, there's probably a woman involved, and he said, probably. I can't remember. It's Vinny something. I can't. Right. And anyway, and he brings the AD down, and we start talking. He goes like, what would it take to start a team? I go, all I knew that Northwood was a good business school. That's all I know. And I said, it's going to be tough, but, the game is growing here in Michigan because, we had just started Birmingham and De La Salle, and Ann Arbor, and, we were starting to get the first ceilings of growth. And Grand Rapids has started to grow, and they said, great, we can. So he brings the AD down and talks the AD down into it.
And this is the middle 80s?
No, this is 92.
92, okay.
91. Okay. 91. And because I was at Brother Rice 89, then I coached Cranbrook 90 and 91. And then during 91, he's come down and talked to me, and he goes, well, you're exceptionally a man. I can get you in. I could see he was a BSer, but he was very good at it. And so anyways, they're talking about, well, you're going to leave here. We'd love to have you come out to, and they will create another position. They created an admissions position for me. And I said, well, okay. And I said, well, everything. The thing is that, when I came to Cranbrook, all the guys that brought me in were all gone in like 6 months. And I was left there like, they're looking like, why do we have this guy? And
right.
I mean, I had to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. Who said that? And I cracked a few eggs over there, and some people, the staid community there didn't like it. I said, if I'm going to move up to Midland, I said I better have some, support up there. And don't worry, you get all. So this guy, oh my God, I wish I could remember his name. I should have prepared better. He gets me up there. They hire me, and they're going to have lacrosse. They announce it, and I move up there, and I get in my office in the athletic department, and I sit down and I'm opening up drawers and putting stuff in. This guy, Vinny, comes in. He goes, well, I wish you the best of luck. I'm like, what? He goes, I've had enough of this cold weather. I'm leaving to go to Texas. And I go, I can't believe this is happening again.
Pattern.
And sure enough, he leaves.
Right.
And I'm left there, and everybody's looking like, why do we have lacrosse?
Well, the question I want to ask, was the idea, like it is now, to build out your athletic department to get more students? or was it just because this guy had a passion for lacrosse?
He was in admissions, and he was trying to get them. This was among the first of the.
So it was a business decision to some extent.
It was the beginning of the idea, which now that's why there's 3,000 Division III schools, that it would build, and that I would get kids that would.
So he was a little bit ahead of his time.
Yeah, exactly. I was always too far ahead of my time, which is, the prophet is without honor in his own land, and then I found out, that the kids at the school were, oh my God, I mean, they were last chance kids, and kids couldn't get anywhere else. I saw that the kids tried out, had tryouts, and I got a report of the grade points of these kids, and I couldn't believe it. The average grade point was about 1.2.
At Northwood.
And
which wasn't exactly the Harvard of the East, Midwest.
And then the AD tried to kill the program. He said, he said, your kids are all ineligible. They can't compete in the NCAA. And that was the beginning of I was like, I just moved up here. You're going to kill the program? I said, I can't help it that there's no kids here.
How long were you there?
I was there from 92 to 2000.
So you were there for 8 years?
Yes.
So they didn't kill it right away?
They made it as difficult as possible.
Okay.
And then the problem was I just couldn't keep kids. It was like, one of my parents said the other day, I would recruit 8 kids as freshmen or 10 kids. The next year there would be 5 of them left. The next year there would be 1 or 2 of them. So it was a perpetual JV, and we're trying to play teams that are like, we're trying to play, Kenyon and Ohio Wesleyan. And, I mean, it was men against boys. It was men against boys, and I tried everything I could do. The bad news, was that I just took a pummeling, and it was a nightmare. And the kids were hard to keep from out of jail. The good news was that I was having to coach at an incredible high level, and talk about honing the saw. When I left there and came back, anything I coached down here, the game was in slow motion. I had coached a college game by myself, substituting, changing, coaching offense, coaching defense, coaching clearing, riding, making substitutions on the fly, changing strategy, trying to sort of figure out what the other guy was doing. I was an incredible coach with no talent at all, trying to make it, it made me, when I came down, I think I started coaching something that's like, wow, this is really easy.
I've always said that coaches of the year should be guys who do the most with the least, not necessarily the guy that wins the championship. Because there's plenty of guys coaching that have no talent and do really well and get those kids to play better than most.
And it's hard to figure that out unless you sit and watch what they do. That's the hard part. It's like, who's really doing a great job? Until I really knows what somebody's doing, I try not to criticize as somebody said, Bill Tierney said once, he says, you never criticize the profession, it makes us look all unprofessional.
Probably
so unless I'm working with somebody that he just doesn't put any effort into it, but so that's basically the story there. We had it was hard every single year. It was tough.
So 2000, you went where?
Well, my son was my stepson,
Billy Bing,
and he had of all things, his mom, my wife, he wanted to play, which is another story. He played for Stan Orzell out of Fenton in the club teams, and so to play lacrosse, he was living in Midland. She took him down and rolled him in Notre Dame prep. I'm a Notre Dame high school grad from Harper Woods, so in fact he was an alumni. I was an alumni, and through a series of situations, they gave me the job his senior year, and so I coached there for a year, and then I was willing to put in there, but the JV kids all got together the last game of the year and decided not to show up at Troy. And I was like, all the good kids graduated. I was like, why would I want to be here? What doesn't make any sense? And meanwhile, at Kima, and dads from Cranbrook were like, you know, we got to get back here and rebuild the Cranbrook program. So I was like, no, yeah. So I went back, and they talked me into going back to take over Cranbrook and rebuilding that. And of course, I had 3 years there that were phenomenal. You know, we went to the state championship game 2 of the 3 years. The other one we lost in the semifinals to Rice, and they were all, you know, and we did a lot with very little there.
Right.
But
and that was a day when it was the Mhslca.
It was still the Mhslca, but the last year, that was where the seed was planted. Mike Kennedy had made a comment in one of the league meetings, and I said, why don't we have regional sites? Because we were always having these fights about, you know, the state playoff games. You know, I can't come here on Tuesday because I got a dance recital at the school or something. And it was, and I said, why don't we just have regional sites, and we don't have to, you know, let's try to. And I can't remember, but I got support for this idea, so we had regional sites the last year, and that group got to make the money, and then we seeded the whole state, and Chris Ferrari and I put the whole thing together. We passed the idea by the guy at Birmingham, Aaron Frank, and we put the whole thing together, and we took the records. We seeded the top 8 teams and put them into 4 regions, and then everything else we drew by lot. So I can't remember. I'll never forget, Ferrari and I still laugh about this. He had a Pop-O-Matic at his house, which was a children's toy,
okay,
but it popped up random numbers or something. So I said, okay, here's the 2 teams, and he could hear the Pop-O-Matic rolling in the background. And I said, okay, where's Lance Crisco? He goes, well, they're playing in the Ann Arbor region, you know. Okay, now we got so-and-so. Where are they playing? And we did the Pop-O-Matic, and people were like, some of the people were like, you have some weird things. Well, we just did it randomly out of the Pop-O-Matic. I mean, you can ask Chris. I mean, it's hilarious.
Oh, we've been told stories of how scientific it was. Apparently, that may not be the truth.
But we seeded and we did that. Right. And apparently, the next year, the Mhsa said they wanted to do it.
2005.
And I talked to Bob Dowd, and that year, and I was like, what was this decision? And he said, the Mhsa saw what you guys did with that tournament last year and how much money those regional sites made. When they saw the money coming into, because I mean, we played at Waverly, and place was packed,
right?
You know, and they saw the money, and that's when they decided to do it. And so then the next year, we seeded it, and oh my God, Ration came in and watched us seed the teams, and he goes, wow, this is unbelievable. And so that was the transition then.
I want to ask a bunch of questions about the game itself, but the point is, you went on to have great success at Notre Dame Prep, and then now you're at Lake Orion.
Yeah, well, I actually went from Cranbrook to Oakland.
To Oakland University after,
and worked with Dwayne Hicks, and then did it myself, and then midnight practices. I was too old even back then, so I went back to Notre Dame Prep, and so there you go.
Of all the things that have changed in this sport, I guess maybe just give me your view, where you started with all these great stories for the last 45 minutes. Are we different now than we were 20 years ago, or is it
talking about the kids,
the game itself? What are we better at? What are we worse at? Let me ask you.
Sport is so exciting right now. The skills are phenomenal. There's so many better athletes playing. There's so much access for kids who want to be good to watch other people play on YouTube, and there's just so much. Other than that, the game's the same. I mean, to me, I've always, people who took my classes, and I don't know if you ever took the class I taught, but I coach the same way. Whether I just coached the Orion U12 team, doing everything the same way I did, whether I was coaching college, high school, middle school, whatever, and it works. It still works.
If you can't catch a pass, it doesn't matter.
So to me, it's the same game, and it's just the kids are better, and you know,
Without being,
whether there's 10 poles on the field or 6 or 5 or 4, I've coached it all.
you should point out to folks that watch it today don't understand that 20 years ago you could put 8, 10 long poles on the field.
Exactly. Like I said, once your brother Rice.
Which is why games took 3 hours and it changes and changes all the time.
There was the horns. There was the, you know, and we just, you know, I remember Bobby Dowd at we were trying to adopt the no end line horn. And he was at a meeting saying, you know, kids are going to drop dead from this in the heat, and they're just down there like Bob. They've been doing this all over the country for years, and we have no reports of casualties. And we've adopted those. And there's not kids dropping dead from heat exhaustion. You know, I mean, every change, just rolled with it and gone on.
Parents changed?
I don't know that it's. I don't know, because I was a Brother Rice, and that's a very unique setting because you don't have moms there, you have dads. And the dads are meaner to their kids than you could possibly be. And you know, that's why coaches that tend to leave Brother Rice have a hard time with other programs because they're used to that it's a really, you know, and partially I created that, but that's, you know, you just win there. There's an aura there that I've never had anywhere else. Like you just go in the locker room, the tension is unbelievable to win. You know, I mean, and those kids go out there, and all you got to do is say, "Do you want to be the first Brother Rice team to ever lose to these guys?" And then they just go out there and they'll just chew up people. And I've tried to recreate that everywhere else with various amounts of success.
You started this interview by suggesting that you had a family of teachers and you really didn't want to teach and did for a while. Coaching, obviously, for an avocation for you is you're 66 and you're still doing it. What's the reward, personal reward for you?
I picked up a group of kids in Lake Orion. These were 10-year-olds, and we didn't get the best kids. We had a couple good kids and some kids that couldn't do anything. And we coached them, minimal coaching, just played a bunch of tournaments this fall, and every one of those kids, not everyone, but a substantial number of kids were doing stuff at the end of the October that they never dreamed of doing. The parents were sitting there just like, holy cow, how do you do this?
But that means what to you?
It's my intrinsic reward. Watching them get better. There's two things I always tell kids. I want watching. That's what something you can't get at high. It's hard to get at higher levels, but watching kids change, because you never know what's going to happen. It's a Game of Thrones where you can't possibly predict what's going to happen. You don't know what are going to be your good kids. You don't know who's going to succeed, who's going to. I try to put everybody in the best. But if they do something that they didn't think they could do, the feeling is euphoric, and it's a euphoria that I can't get anywhere else.
I have always said coaching is like breathing. If you took breathing away from me, if you took coaching away from me, I'm not sure if I could get up in the morning. I mean,
I don't disagree.
That's kind of my point.
But the teaching part of it is the satisfaction, the thrill of watching kids. And I'm a team sport guy. I never liked individual sports, but I have a gift, which I've figured out now. It took me a long time to figure that. I think there's a certain gift to it.
Which is what? What's your gift?
Just a knack for creation. I mean, it's like a painter who can paint. Like, who could paint like Picasso before Picasso? Well, nobody. I just have a knack for putting together teams in the most efficient way possible. And nobody else, I look around and people have worked with me and they say, well, I coach the Ron Hebert way. It's like somebody who watched Picasso paint or held his paint. I paint this like Picasso did. No, you don't. Like Belichick. People use Belichick's system. Nobody coaches like Belichick. He's special. He has a knack for it.
Whenever your name is mentioned, it always follows with the most knowledgeable guy in the state of Michigan as far as lacrosse goes.
I'm not that smart.
Well, I'm saying those are synonymous. Conversely, they always will come up and say, too, Ron is Ron. So I'm like, do we understand you?
I have no idea what it. I've given up trying to get people to understand what I do.
Okay.
I know people like, you do all this, you do all this stuff, and I always think back to the Cokie Roberts talking about She said that the Senate is all kabuki. It's all people. I mean, nobody knows what kabuki is, but have you ever seen the Japanese theater kabuki? It's people, hugely exaggerated, emotions and stomping of their feet and shouting. And to me, that's why they tell me, listen, coaching is all kabuki.
It is.
It's you're an actor, and you're putting on an act to get the most out of your kids. And I said, everything I do, I only do because it works. Okay? And it works for me. I can't coach the way you coach. I can't coach the way, I do crazy things with, not crazy, but I do, kids, early in my teaching career, I learned that kids get the most out of teachers they think are slightly crazy. And everybody's favorite teacher is the teacher that they thought was a little bit crazy. My favorite teacher of all time, he couldn't do what he does today. He'd be in jail. I mean, he used to throw erasers at kids in the classroom back in the 60s. I mean, but we all paid attention, and we hung on his every word. And, what I do is kabuki. And at the end of the thing, I do everything I can for my kids, and I give every kid a chance. But I'm the American system allows for more genius and more failures than any other system. And I said, well, I'm going to put every kid in a position to be a genius.
How much longer do you think you're going to still coach?
I don't know. It's getting hard. It's getting hard.
Because physical? Just being older? Or are there other outstanding ideas?
Physically, it's exhausting because I put so much into it. Even if I do an hour session with a kid, I'm exhausted afterward. The attention, I'm wondering if I'm as sharp. Am I missing stuff? Harder to prepare. It's hard to get focused.
That's called age.
It's harder to get focused on preparation.
And
on the other hand, I kind of think, well, I don't need that much time to prepare because I have an encyclopedia of stuff that,
you still got to prepare.
Other people don't. Well, no, but I have access. I can. Kids that play for me, they go, Hebert always has a solution to everything.
Right.
There's nothing we can fall into that if they're kids that are on the same page. And but the thing is, like I said, I just coached a U12 team, which I haven't coached since the early '80s, and it was a ball. It was a blast.
Cool.
And as long as I still get that, out of it, and I still can do it, yeah. I don't know what the end will be.
Your best opinion, and my last question, where's the sport headed? And I want to ask 3 specifics. Do we have enough coaches in this state that know what they're doing?
Never. But we have more than we've ever had.
Okay. Where's the sport headed in your mind? Do you see it staying in high school, or do you see a for-profit sneaking in and becoming soccer?
Well, it already is, but I don't know. I just don't. I don't know what. It's kids are harder to figure out these days. So I don't. I struggle with that every day. I look at the kids now that I have a huge. It's been a long time since I had a whole group of kids that I can look at in 6th grade and see him 6 years from now, and so I don't know. That's what's actually intriguing about the Lake Orion thing is I have a chance. I haven't had that chance in a long time to see who try to develop them and set up a system. But again, it's the prophet is without honor in his own land. I have a vision that it's hard to get across to people because you're talking. The joke I always make is that the biggest lie ever told was that the one-eyed man in the land of the blind is king. The truth of the matter is the one-eyed man in the land of the blind is considered insane. I'm the one-eyed man in the land of the blind, trying to tell people, here's what we can do. And it's hard, but the excitement of it is a good chance. Having the chance to develop kids from the ground up, and I'd love to see it happen.
10 years from now, what do you want us to remember about you?
What did you just say a minute ago? what I'd rather have is the kids. I mean, I'm not going to be honored like, nobody's going to throw me a dinner like for Casa and pitch money in and, you can make $500,000 for his retirement. The kids that played for me, the kids that are going to be the ones, and they pass that on. And I joked, I was at the Boo Bash a couple weekends ago, coaching U12 team. Every team we played against, kid coaching that team, I had coached somewhere. Or I taught him at St. Hugo. One kid came in, I didn't know. He says, "You're Mr. Hebert." I coached against him for an hour. He said, "Yeah, Eric Jeunesse from St. Hugo's. He taught me in 6th grade." I said, "We coached for an hour. That's the legacy. That's what it's going to be. Anybody else? I mean, pretty soon, again, what you think of me, or Mike Jolly thinks of me, or Aaron Frank, or Bob Dowd, we're all going to be gone in a little bit."
Won't matter.
I mean, I look at the guys, that I respected their opinion. Like Bill Freehan came over one day. I taught all his kids at St. Hugo's, and he came over one day to watch a lacrosse game. And I was looking like, "Bill, what are you doing here?" He goes, "Hey, Ron Hebert's got everybody in Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills playing lacrosse, and I got to see what it's all about." But they're all gone, They're all gone. Bill's got dementia. I hear.
He does.
It's such sad. What a great guy. One of the greatest guys. Greatest guy of all time, really. And so it doesn't really matter. It's the kids that are doing stuff that I've impacted, and that's when it comes dark at night on Christmas Eve and I'm sitting alone having an eggnog, that's what I think about. Do they come back to me? Rarely do they do, but they're always thinking about me. I know that because they tell me, and when I bump into them, and so would I like to win it all one more time? Damn right I would. And that's driving me every day. I want to come back and win it all one more time. And they say, "Well, he hadn't done anything since 91." Really? Okay. We'll see about that.
Appreciate your time.
No problem.
Thanks so much.